Ferry is one of the most misunderstood characters in Granblue Fantasy Relink and a lot more complex than she may initially seem. She's capable of working as both a utility support character, permanently debuffing your enemies, while also increasing the damage output of your party, while at the same time also being capable of dealing crazy amounts of damage. There's quite a few neat tricks and techs to master Ferry, so in this video I will be going through all the skills, sigils, weapons and overall optimizations, so that you can get the most out of Ferry and her build. With that being said, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and welcome back to another YouTube video. We're just about halfway through the character roster, and I do plan to revisit some of the older videos, but if you are enjoying these build guide videos, let me know which character I should cover next. With that being said, let's get started. Ferry's entire kit is all about summoning her pets, which will target the enemies and attack them while also buffing herself and her party in accordance to how many pets she has available, which is indicated by those 3 icons on screen. Now, a very big misunderstanding is that Ferry only has 3 pets, since you only have 3 different icons, but in fact, as you can see, she has 4 different pets. Quite simply, 2 of them take up the first slot, but that is something to keep in mind in regards to the amount of buffs that you can get from certain skills. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Let's start with Ferry's basic attack combo string. Her basic attacks are these very long range whip attacks, with the final hit of this whip attack having a very high end leg, and so you can actually cancel out of it. Like so. Something to note is that Ferry's whip attack will actually deal more damage the farther you are from the enemies. So do keep that in mind, even though that once you reach the endgame and you start hitting the damage cap, that won't matter as much. Something very important about her basic combo string is that if you hold the square button, you will start doing this big charged attack where she flails the whip around for as long as you keep on holding it. And if you let go at any moment, she will then do this attack that covers a pretty wide area and will summon another pet. Additionally, the big flash that you see is the indication that you can let go of the button, and if you time it right, you're going to be able to parry an incoming attack. So having a way for you to parry an incoming attack is always nice, and again, you don't need to time it exactly as you see the glowing flash. You can actually just be holding the attack button, and whenever you see you are about to get hit, you simply let go at the right time, and you'll perform the parry like so. Now, as you can see, once a pet is summoned, it will keep on attacking the target until it is finally going to be dismissed, like there. You also have some skills that allow you to instantly summon your pets, like this one right here, but I'll cover them in a moment. But another very handy thing about Ferry is that whenever you trigger a link attack, you will instantly summon all of your pets at once. There's actually a neat little trick that you can do with the link attack, which I'll show you in a moment, that is going to allow you to exponentially increase your damage output. As for Ferry's jump attack, this is her launcher, which then you can do a couple of whip attacks, but what you really want to pay attention to is the aerial barrage, which you do by pressing the triangle button, and this combo actually deals plenty of damage, but I'll talk about this in more detail a little bit further ahead in the video. Your heavy attack is called Onslaught, where you flail your whip around and hit multiple times in a wide area, and finally you hit with this powerful whip attack that deals a lot of damage, but you will lose all of your pets at the end. One very important thing to note about the Onslaught is that it is very backloaded, meaning that most of the damage out of this combo is going to come from that final hit and not from all of these other hits that you do, so you will actually deal a little bit more damage if you simply keep your pets and hold the basic attack button like this, though one of her unique sigils is going to make the Onslaught more powerful than that combo, but I will be talking more about optimal combos in a moment. And so if you're not using that unique sigil, it's going to be better for you if you simply tap the Onslaught to quickly get all of your pets out, do that big damage in that final hit, and then use one of your skills to quickly summon all of your pets back and resume the action. That is, unless you find yourself in a situation where you can hit multiple enemies at once or multiple parts of a boss with the Onslaught. Now, that is this neat little tech that you can do as Ferry when you see that you are about to trigger a link attack, like here for example. You go ahead and you tap the Onslaught and you go ahead and use the link attack right after, so that way you are able to get off the big final hit from the Onslaught without wasting all of your pets, because you're going to be getting them right away from link attack. That being said, let's now go over all of Ferry's skills, since there are quite a few unique interactions between them. And let's start with Purge Spirits, where Ferry hits with this powerful whip attack, and at the end she summons all of her pets. This skill deals a ton of stagger, and so you will very easily be able to trigger a link attack right after. So of course you can do this, cancel that, do the Onslaught real quick, and tap into the link attack, and you are able to maintain all of your pets and deal a ton of damage. This is by far one of Ferry's best offensive tools, and because it has such a high stagger value, it's going to be very beneficial for your team to be able to trigger those link attacks so consistently. Keep in mind that your pets are going to be summoned at your exact location, so if you use Purge Spirits from here, your pets are going to show up here and they will have to walk all the way there to the enemy. And as such, you'll be missing out on some DPS. So ideally, you would be using Purge Spirits at close range to deal as much damage as possible. The next skill on the list is going to be Benediction, where Ferry is able to provide up to 3 different benefits to herself as well as the party, as long as they are within range, and the amount of benefits that she provides are going to depend on the amount of pets that she has available. For Benediction, we're going to be counting Fuji and Nicola, these 2 little gremlins, as if they were a single pet. So whenever you have a single pet, you can go ahead and pop Benediction, and you're going to provide regen for yourself and the entire party. Regen is a nice buff to be able to tank some chip damage that you'll receive from standing on lava pools or just being hit by something else. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it is better than nothing. Now that we have 2 pets with GG there, casting Benediction will also grant you with a defense buff. This defense buff is going to go from 10 to 20% depending on how many pets you have on the battlefield, so when you have all of your 4 pets out and you cast Benediction, you're going to get a 20% defense bonus, and you also get a 20% attack bonus on top. And again, this is shared between your party members as long as they are within the area that you cast this. Sadly, the 20% attack buff doesn't mean much in the endgame because you'll often be reaching the damage cap, and so the better off you are and the rest of your party, this attack bonus is going to be a lot less efficient. On top of that, Benediction doesn't have a ton of range, so if you have ranged characters in the back as well as some melee characters up front close to the boss, you may not be able to hit everyone with Benediction, so the skill ends up losing value there. Now the next skill on the list is going to be Umlauf, where Ferry summons Beppo and turns him into this big ball that goes around and deals damage in an area near you, as you can see right here. It also grants Ferry Stout Heart, which means that she becomes uninterruptible, and so you are able to use Onslaught a lot more often and a lot more carelessly, because you won't be pushed back or interrupted by anything. Umlauf doesn't deal a ton of damage, but it is a nice bonus when you are up close to the monsters, and the damage is going to rack up and it's going to be quite good actually, so I do believe that it is a pretty good skill if you're playing Ferry as an offensive character that has to stay up close to the enemies. As for the other buff that Ferry has, it's called Enrichten, where Ferry gains a 50% attack boost, a 30% critical hit rate boost, supplementary damage, and invincibility. And much like with Benediction, you need to have 1 pet for each of these buffs, so if you have no pet and you cast Benediction, you're still going to get the 50% attack bonus, but if you do cast it when you have all of your pets out, you're going to get all of those benefits. So now that we have 3 pets available and we cast Enrichten, we're going to get the attack boost, critical hit rate and the supplementary damage bonus, but we don't get the invincibility. In order to get the invincibility, you do need to have all of your 4 pets out. We already covered why attack bonus isn't that amazing. Once you reach the endgame, it won't be as useful. That being said, supplementary damage is actually quite powerful, as it basically just adds an extra hit whenever you deal damage that is going to deal 25% of the original's damage. On top of that, the supplementary damage that you receive from any skills are going to stack with supplementary damage that you get from your sigils. Which means that if I add Enrichten, now that I have supplementary damage, and since I have supplementary damage from my build as well, as I'll show you later on, there will be 2 extra instances of damage each time I attack an enemy. This is by far the best way for you to increase your damage output without hitting the damage cap, so it is quite powerful, do not underestimate it. As for the extra 30% critical hit rate, it's just a nice bonus. Very often in your endgame builds, you're going to end up with a critical hit rate of around 80 to 90%. Very rarely you're going to go above it without starting to lose some DPS. And so within Enrichten, getting that critical hit rate buff, you'll be able to guarantee that you reach the 100% critical hit rate to just deal more damage, as you will always be dealing critical hits. It's a pretty nice buff and I like this skill a lot, but of course it's something that you're only going to use if you're going to be playing Ferry offensively, because if you're going to be playing her as more of a debuffer, that is not going to be as useful. Although at the same time you can quite simply activate that skill very easily just to dodge an incoming attack because you'll be invincible. And being invincible can actually have some great benefits, as a lot of bosses tend to have attacks where they kind of force you to stay away from the monster and stop attacking, so having a way to maintain DPS during those times is going to be very beneficial. The next skill is going to be Strafe, where Ferry summons all 4 of her pets and sends them out, dealing a barrage of damage that also deals very heavy stagger damage, so very often you'll be able to follow that up with a link attack like so. And you can actually quickly cancel this skill very easily, so if we go ahead and press Strafe, you can quickly dodge out of the way and the pets will already be summoned and they will be doing the attack while you are dodging. Also, I forgot to mention before, but you can also cancel Umlauf, like so. Now you will have the orb around you, and you can also cancel Enrichten, although the timing is a little bit tighter. So Strafe ends up being just a powerful skill that lets you put all of your pets on the battlefield at once, and so it is going to be a very valuable skill for any Ferry players. The next skill is going to be Sikkim GG, where Ferry throws out GG and he's going to cast this big AoE slow effect that is going to slow down any enemies. This works very well against any bosses, except for the ones that have the darkness element, so for example Proto-Bahamut would not be a good idea to use this against, but for a lot of other bosses this is going to be very effective, so having a way to not only summon a pet while also providing some party-wide utility with the slow is going to be quite beneficial. And just like the other skills, you can go ahead and cancel out of it very quickly, like so. The pet is still going to come out, so you can do something else instead. The next skill is going to be Pendel, where Ferry dashes backwards, all the while placing down 3 pets and dealing some damage where she started from. Personally, I don't like this skill a lot because you do lose out on a lot of DPS. Whenever you use Fendel, the pets also go back to your location, so they have to walk back to the enemy. It's kind of decent if you're playing Ferry as a debuffer, you want to maintain your distance and whatnot, but personally I don't like it a lot, especially since you have things like improved dodge and improved guard, which lets you dodge a lot of incoming damage very easily. I think having to take up an entire skill slot just to use a skill that is a backwards dodge to dodge attacks that doesn't even summon all of your pets at once, I don't think it's a very good value proposition, and so I don't think Pendel is going to be a very good skill. And Ferry's final skill is Blauge Spent, where Ferry summons Fugi and Nicola, these 2 gremlins, while also dealing some decent damage and applying defense down to the enemy. And on top of that, it also dispels 1 buff from the enemy. Personally, I don't think that the defense down is going to be that beneficial. As you'll see in a moment, Ferry is able to maintain the enemy with the defense down permanently thanks to her sigil, so that ends up losing a little bit of value. Being able to remove a buff from an enemy is nice, but it's not the biggest deal in the world, and the skill itself doesn't deal a ton of damage. It does 400,000 here, but in comparison Purge Spirits is going to do just about the same, but it ends up summoning all of her pets. But the cool thing about Blauge Spent is that you can very easily cast that skill, and you can cancel it very quickly like there. So you can very quickly cast it, cancel it, and start doing some good DPS. Now there is a special tag to Ferry that I think a lot of players, myself included, have overlooked, that is the key to dealing the most damage possible with this character. And that is quite simply the Aerial Ferry playstyle. You quite simply use the launcher into the Aerial Barrage, and because the Aerial Barrage has the same damage cap as the Onslaught without the restriction of it cancelling out your pets, you can keep on spamming this and the damage output of this is going to be crazy. Now I do want to give a shout out to the YouTube channel Tom, who brought to light this Ferry tech, and in their YouTube video they show Ferry dealing upwards of 30 million damage in only a minute. So the idea is that you start off by using Strafe, cancelling it by dodging, and then you activate Umlauf and also cancel it by dodging once again. You will then be up close and next to the target dummy, so you go ahead and do the aerial lunge into the aerial barrage, and you just keep on spamming that until you trigger the link attacks, at which point you go ahead and use your Purge Spirit to deal damage, cancel that out of the way, use the Blouse Just Spent as well and cancel that with another dodge, and just keep on doing the aerial combos. As you can see, the damage output is absolutely absurd, and since you have Umlauf active, you will have Stout Art, and so you don't need to be worried about being knocked back by any attacks. You can simply keep on repeating this, and eventually your cooldowns will come back, so you'll be able to trigger Umlauf once again. Just keep on doing this and making sure that you have as many pets available as possible. And even though I don't even have the Heinrichten buff active during this moment, I'm still able to dish out close to 30 million damage, with the only reason that I'm not able to reach that threshold being that I'm a couple of perfect sigils short of reaching that damage number. Now let me show you the gear that I'm running on my endgame Ferry build. As for the weapons, my first recommendation is going to be the critical hit rate weapon, as it is going to be the best cheap alternative, as you're going to be hitting the enemies a lot of times with Ferry. Just being able to raise your critical hit rate is going to be very beneficial, and you get the benefit of also getting critical hit damage to deal even more damage. Of course, if you can, the Ascension weapon fully maxed out is going to be a better option, with the Terminus weapon being the de facto best weapon, as on top of having amazing stats, it comes with damage cap level 5, the most important trait in the entire game, Sigil Booster, which is going to raise the trait levels of all of your equipped sigils by 1, and Catastrophe, which is going to boost your attack by 50% and your damage cap by 100% whenever you are below or at 45,000 HP, which is pretty much going to be all the time. Regen is a nice bonus, but overall this is just a fantastic weapon to run. Now as for my imbue traits, as you can see there on the right, I currently have critical hit rate 10, which provides me with 14% critical hit rate, Steel Nerves level 6, which is going to reduce the damage that I take, while I have Stout Heart active by 6%, which is nice because that is going to be active for a pretty decent amount of time, and I do also have Cascade, which is going to shorten my skill cooldowns whenever I attack the enemies, and as you will see from my sigils, I will be able to max this out. As for the Overmasteries, as usual, I recommend everybody to try to get as many damage cap up as possible, with the most important ones being the ones that raise the damage cap of your normal attacks as well as your skills. Everything else is secondary, so just go from there. Now let's go over my sigils, since there are actually quite a few options here. Starting off with Ferry's own sigil, Phantasm's Harmony is going to boost the damage cap of your Onslaught's final hit, and if that lands, it's going to shorten Ferry's skill cooldowns based on how many pets there are on the battlefield. This is what turns the Onslaught into a much more powerful tool, and being able to reduce your cooldowns with this makes this a very appealing sigil. That being said, I do not run this sigil on my build, and the reason for that is Ferry's second sigil, Phantasm's Concord. This one is going to boost the damage of Ferry's pets by 30% and also give them a 25% chance to inflict both attack down and defense down by 20% for 10 seconds, with the duration of this debuff being possibly refreshed before it runs out. This sigil allows Ferry to not only increase her damage output, but also increase the damage output of her entire team if they are not already maxed out. If they are hitting the damage cap, reducing the defense of the enemies is not going to be that big of a deal, but reducing the attack of enemies is going to actually be pretty beneficial, as it can make the difference between you going down or simply having to drink a potion, or maybe you are running guts and this allows you to not get into the guts territory right away, so you still end up having that extra safety option. It's just a nice bonus to have even in the endgame, and with a lot of endgame builds running Tyranny that is going to decrease your HP to increase the damage output, being able to lower the enemy's attack is going to be quite beneficial. Now as you can see here, I do instead opt to go with solely the Phantasm Concord, and I do get rid of the Phantasm Harmony, because quite simply I don't think it is going to be as beneficial for me. The way that I like to play Ferry is using the aerial playstyle, since that's what deals the most damage output with this character, and so the chances that I would get to use the Phantasm Harmony wouldn't be that many. And so I can go ahead and equip a sigil like this that gives me Phantasm Concord but also gives me critical hit damage. Now ideally I would have a Phantasm Concord that gives me damage cap, so I wouldn't have to run 4 different damage cap sigils, and I do believe that is what's stopping me currently from reaching that 30 million damage in the 1 minute test. As I said, I have 4 different damage cap sigils. This one comes with improved dodge, a skill that I value a lot, as it boosts my dodge count by up to 7 and also increases the iframes of my dodges, which is going to make the game a lot easier for me. This one comes with Potion Hoarder, which is one of the most beneficial quality of life sigils in the entire game, as it's going to provide you with 3 extra green potions 5 extra blue potions and mega potions, and 2 extra revival potions. If you are running sigils like stamina for example, which as you'll see in a moment I am running, which is going to boost your attack based on how much percentage HP you have, being able to have more potions to be able to heal yourself back up to full to get the most benefit out of stamina is going to be very important, because if you actually take big damage and you need to heal very quickly, you will simply have a bigger stock of potions to use, and in the endgame where everything simply deals a ton of damage, this just becomes one of the best sigils to run. And then these 2 damage caps, this one comes with Cascade, and thanks to our weapon imbuement, I'll be able to max out on Cascade, giving me a 2% skill cooldown each time that I attack an enemy, and since you're going to be doing a whole lot of that with Ferry, this ends up being very useful, and this damage cap sigil comes with quick cooldown, which I will be maxing out, granting me a 20% skill cooldown reduction. So that is going to be more uptime on the pets and the buffs, and simply more damage. Now I am running 3 different supplementary damage sigils, only one of them comes with an additional skill, but being able to have 3 supplementary damage sigils is already fantastic. As I talked about before, supplementary damage is by far one of the best ways for you to boost your damage, as you are quite simply going to be adding an extra hit whenever you attack a monster that is going to deal 25% of the original's damage. And this actually stacks with any skill that gives you supplementary damage, which we do have in the case of Ferry. So it is by far one of the best things to have, and being able to have this at 100% will guarantee those extra hits and will exponentially raise your damage output. And as I said before, I do have a couple of stamina 5 sigils. These 2 come with quick cooldown, and so I'm able to max out on stamina, and I'm also able to max out on quick cooldown. Of course, I'm also running War Elemental, one of the best sigils in the game, as it's going to make it so that every single attack you do is going to count as if the enemy was weak to my element, so that's just a 25% extra damage on top of everything. And finally, I have Glass Cannon. This sigil is one of the very best when it comes to raising your damage output, as it is going to raise my attack by 30% and my damage cap by also 30%, with the downside being that whenever I get hit, I will be inflicted with Dizzy, which is going to leave me vulnerable, which means I can then get hit by a follow-up attack and then die. Also, for everyone that has been asking, even if you run Dizzy resistance at max level, you are still going to be inflicted with Dizzy. Now, a very good sigil that you could also consider using on Ferry would be Injury to Insult, which at level 30, which you can get with only a couple of sigils, would boost your damage by up to 30% as long as the enemy is inflicted with a status ailment. But thanks to Phantasm's Concord, the Ferry sigil that I showed you before, you are able to guarantee that the enemy is always going to have a debuff, because yes, the game does count attack down and defense down as status ailments, and so this sigil bonus would be active at all times. So it is going to be a very nice alternative in case you want to run it. Another very good sigil to run on Ferry would be Stun Power, because so many of her attacks have high stun power, and being able to add even more stun to be able to guarantee those link attacks, not only is it going to be beneficial for your team and will allow you to trigger a lot more link times, you'll also be able to recover your pets more often, which means you'll be able to deal even more damage. It's just a very nice sigil to run that, despite not directly increasing your DPS, actually provides you with some offensive power. So here you have the build that I'm running on my Ferry. Now there are a couple of changes that I would make to further improve this build. As you can see, my critical hit rate is only 84%, so if I were able to get just a little bit more, that would be pretty nice. Where instead of having 4 different damage cap sigils, I would replace one of them with Tyranny, and I would still get the damage cap from my Phantasm Concord. As you can see, your signature sigil can come with damage cap, and so if I were to get that on my Phantasm's Concord, I would be able to further raise my damage output and thus reach that 30 million damage in a single minute. That being said, the skills that I like to run are Purge Spirits, Umlauf, Strafe and Heinrichten. Although in the damage test that I showed you earlier I am running the Blouse Just Spent skill, I do believe that in the long run, Heinrichten is going to be more beneficial, although in the short time span that is the training dummy test, the Blouse Just Spent simply is going to outperform. I do believe that in an actual quest, Heinrichten is going to be more beneficial. But now let's go ahead and take on a Proud difficulty quest so I can show off Ferry in action. We're going to be taking on the Black Dragon. This is one of the toughest enemies in Proud difficulty, so this should be a good enough showcase. Let's just go ahead and dodge this incoming attack. Like so, very easy. Pop the strafe, dodge, pop the Umlauf and dodge as well. Also gonna go ahead and pop the Einrichten, throw this ball at the Black Dragon to slow him down, and let's start using our aerial combos. Right there I got hit by one of the Dark Gyres, but that's totally fine. We get a Link attack off, very nice. And let's resume the aggression. Gonna go ahead and block that. I get hit by the slow, but that is fine. Gonna throw this orb at the dragon and gonna hit him with the Purge Spirits. And we're already dealing plenty of damage here. Need to be careful to dodge these. Oh, we get a Link attack off, very nice. I use the Umlauf once again just to deal more damage. Very nice, very big damage. Gonna go ahead and dodge that. Let me also pop these very quickly. Now, the Black Dragon is weak to the Light Element, but that's not going to be making much of a difference anyway, since I'm using the War Elemental Sigil. Get a Link attack off, very nice, we're already at 60%. Or I should say 68% of our Link time. Gonna dodge that. And the cool thing about Ferry is that you can actually do these very quick attacks from a distance. Gonna go ahead and block that. I didn't want to rely on the perfect dodge just to be safe. I went ahead and blocked that. Gonna go ahead and destroy that just to make things a little bit easier for us. And now we're gonna go ahead and dodge the incoming projectiles. Like so. So now that that's over, go ahead and block that. Pop the Umlauf. Pop the Einrichten. Let's also throw this orb at him to slow him down. And let's resume our offense. Gotta go ahead and block that. Sadly the block was broken and so I do get knocked down, but we do have 3 revive potions, so let's go ahead and use one of those. I'm out of pets, so I'm gonna go ahead and use Purge Spirits real quick. And now we have all of them back. And we are already at 99% for the Link time. Very, very close. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and while I'm dodging these, keep on attacking him. Trying to stun him so that we can get that Link time off. Gonna pop that. Use Strafe and now we get a break. Gonna throw this at him. And we have Purge Spirit, so let's go ahead and use that. And this should be a Link time. Looks like not everybody participated in it, so we're not gonna get it off this time, that's fine. Same thing, we keep on dealing damage while he's doing that. Go ahead and jump to avoid that. Eugen goes down again, that's totally fine. We keep on dealing damage. Pop the Strafe to get even more pets up on the field. He's about to break and we're gonna get the Link time off now. Oh, Lancelot missed it this time. The AI is missing those Link times, man. You hate to see it. And now he goes into overdrive. So we're likely gonna have to dodge something here. Gonna throw one of these orbs. I'm gonna do my best here to try to break him. There we go, we use the Purge Spirits to go ahead and do that. And since we are in Link time, I'm gonna go ahead and actually use the Onslaught, since we're gonna get the pets back right away. Very nice damage. I did get hit by one of the orbs, but that's fine. And now he goes into Bloodlust, so we have to avoid whatever he's doing. Nice. Eugen goes down again. I need to do something about this, man. And the Black Dragon doesn't stop doing that, but that's fine. Gonna go ahead and use Purge Spirits, get the spirits back up. Use Unlauf, use Einrichten. And I'm also gonna go ahead and use the SBA here. Try to break the overdrive. And use this chance to deal as much damage as possible. Big damage. And again, because I have War Elements, it should count as doing extra damage. And we are about to hit another Link time. Gonna save my Purge Spirits for then. Gonna use it now. And we should get a link time off here. There we go. That's what I love about Ferry, you're able to get off those link times very easily. She's a very reliable character for sure, deals a ton of damage. Gonna go ahead and use another Purge Spirits into the Onslaught one more time. And might be able to use another Purge Spirits here. Not quite. But I'm still gonna go ahead and use it. But that's going to be it. Yep, we do finish it off with the Purge Spirits. Look at that whip. Sadly, we didn't get all of the side objectives because Eugen died quite a few times, and I also ended up going down once, but that's totally fine. Hopefully that was a good enough showcase for Ferry. She is quite a powerful character capable of dealing tons of damage while also supporting the team. She's by far not one of the easiest characters in the game, there's quite a few things that you need to learn to max out, and she has plenty of tech for you to learn, but that's also what makes Ferry such a fun and engaging character, and again on top of all of that she is incredibly powerful. If you want to see more videos like these, let me know which character I should cover next. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, my name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting!